All right, West Virginia fans, it's the Utah preview. We've talked about this a little bit earlier in the week of the top storylines, but for today, it's time to talk about the Utah Utes team, talk about West Virginia, talk about some of the things that transpired this week, and get you ready for Saturday's game. If you're a West Virginia fan, please remember to like and subscribe to JerseyEER. We've been growing at a great rate and want to continue that trend. So if you're a Mountaineer fan and you like West Virginia content, please like and subscribe to the show. Let's get into the preview for this week's game. So to start off, the game information, right? 3:30 kickoff on Fox. So it's a good kickoff spot for West Virginia. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this one. So hopefully they can perform better than they performed last week, because we do not want to put an ugly showing on national television this week. Fox is always a big ticket game, so a lot of eyeballs are going to be on this one in Morgantown. West Virginia, I checked last night, was about a 12.5-point underdog. No surprise there with the injuries and what we've put on film this year. So not surprised at all that even though we're home, we're a 12.5-point underdog. And then we're wearing the 1965 throwback uniform. I know a lot of fans are excited to see us wear those uniforms, especially our older fans. So that will be pretty cool to go down memory lane and rock these. Hopefully we play good wearing those. And like I said, it's going to be a national televised game. Throwback uniforms, should be a nice crowd. So that is the game information going into this one on Saturday. Let's talk about which team rebounds. So let's talk about West Virginia first, since it's a West Virginia show. Just a roller coaster of a season. After the Robert Morris game, you were concerned about the fumbling, but you got that under control and played a really good second half, and things were looking up. Everyone was talking about some of the playmakers like Cam Vaughn and Bowers and people like that, and you get a win there. But then the week after, Jaheim White and Jaden Bray go down with season-ending injuries. You lose to a MAC school, and the world is falling apart. Then you go home and you beat Pitt in a crazy comeback win, and the season's back on. We're all excited, just for 1 week later to come crashing back down. So which West Virginia team are we going to see? Are we going to see the one that played Pittsburgh and rallied together and got enough done to win that game? Or are we going to see the one that played Kansas last week that got dog walked early in that game, was over after the first play in the second half? What are we going to see? Is the offensive line going to improve? Who are we going to see at quarterback? There's just so many questions surrounding this West Virginia team. They're going to be looking for a spark. They're going to be looking to get their fan base back on their side and get the momentum rolling in the right direction. Utah has a different season than us. Started off really hot, looked really, really good against UCLA, taking care of them 43-10. Played Cal Poly, beat them 63-9. Took care of Wyoming 31-6. That game was pretty close, though, in the second half. And then Utah pulled away. So they started off a little slow, but then ended up finding themselves and winning 31-6. And then last week was a 34-10 loss to Texas Tech. Don't let the score deceive you, though. That was a close game in the fourth quarter, and then Texas Tech kind of blew them open at the end with the backup quarterback. So both teams here are going to be hungry to prove themselves and to show that last week is not going to be what to expect for the rest of the season. So I expect to see two hungry teams out there on Saturday that are going to want to show the rest of the Big 12 that you need to start paying attention to us. So a lot of thing riding on this game for both teams, because you don't want to start your conference off 0-2. So that's what the teams have done so far this season. Availability report. These are new to the Big 12 this year. Schools now, 72 hours before the game, have to put out an availability report, and they get updated daily. So I'm recording this around 4 o'clock on Thursday. So this is probably going to get updated tonight. We'll get updated again on Friday and then before the game. West Virginia, we already know about the guys that are kind of out. Jaheim White, Jaden Bray, Horton, and Young are all out. Jaheim White and Jaden Bray have had season-ending injuries since week 2, so that's no surprise there. Sincere Bowers is doubtful with that concussion. He took a targeting hit against last week against Kansas, so he's not going to be available, doesn't look like, for this game. He's doubtful. Landon Livingston is dealing with an injury, so he might be out. So Carson Lee's probably going to get some reps there. And then questionable is Ty Edwards, which is the big one, right? Rich Rodriguez said on Monday at his show that he's probably more doubtful than questionable, but fingers crossed that we can get Ty Edwards back on the field. That would be a major, major lift for a running back room that is extremely thin right now. So hopefully we can get Ty back in this game. Nico Markiel, he's questionable for this game, and is he questionable for the rest of the season? He saw a foot specialist this week out in Colorado, which is interesting, right? I think we have a good medical staff at West Virginia, so it's kind of interesting that he's out to see a specialist in Colorado right now. So keep an eye on that and to see if he's available for this game and really for the rest of the season. Ben Bogle and then Jacob Barrick. So those are the questionable players. Some guys that are not on this list that were listed earlier in the week from Rich Rodriguez at his press conference, Kimo Monacchioli and Tykees Crawford, two offensive linemen, he said were questionable, but they don't show up on this initial report. So maybe that's a good sign for West Virginia that they can play. But let's be honest, they haven't played too well since they've been in there. They've really, really struggled this season. Their PFF grades are not good. So if they do play, hopefully they can step up their game because they haven't been good this season. And then probable is Darren Lewis and Preston Fox. It'd be nice to get Preston Fox back out there because he's done some nice things in the return game, and I trust him at wide receiver. He's made plays in the past for West Virginia, so he's a good piece to have back on the field. And then Darren Lewis has caused a lot of turnovers this year and has played really well coming over from Akron, so hopefully he's available this week too. Opposite end, Utah, not as much on their injury report. You see Rabbit Evans, Zanipper, Hunter Andrews is out for the season, who was a tight end that they were expecting big things from, so he's out. And then you see the other guys there. Pay attention to the doubtful defensive tackle, Vamahe. He's a nice player, so he's doubtful. That might be a big thing in this game. The guy I have on the graphics not mentioned in the initial report, and that is Devin Dampierre. Last week, he seemed to get injured versus Wyoming, or 2 weeks ago, he was injured versus Wyoming, but he never showed up on the initial injury report. And Utah's coach mentioned this week that he was possibly banged up and very limited, and that's why he took a step back last week. So it's interesting that he wasn't on the report last week, and it's interesting he's not on the report this week. So I'm guessing he's playing, but how limited is he going to be? I think it's one of the major storylines heading into this game is the health of Devin Dampierre and what he looks like running that offense. So keep an eye out for that. But as of right now, he's not on the initial report, and I do expect him to play. Let's talk about Rich Rod versus Utah. So these are the most recent results of Rich Rodriguez versus Utah. In 2008, it was his first game at Michigan, and he lost a close one, 25-23. Michigan was not very good that year, failed to make a bowl game. And then if you look in 2012, he went on a little bit of a winning streak versus them, had the 34-24 win over them. 2013, 35-24. In 2014, 42-10. And then 2015 won in double overtime. And then 2016 went on a 2-game losing streak, 36-23 and 30-24. So 4-3 record against Utah in most recent years for Rich Rodriguez. So he has seen these guys many times, so that might be helpful going into this game, is the familiarity playing Utah. But I wanted to highlight that as part of our pregame show. All-time series, these teams have not played much at all. 2017, Utah beat us 30-14. Will Grier did not play in that game. He dislocated his finger versus Texas. So Chris Chugunov, a New Jersey guy, Montgomery, New Jersey, actually played in that game. And West Virginia just, with the quarterback change, didn't match up well. And then 1964, a game that I was not around for, West Virginia lost 32-6 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I mentioned this on my show earlier this week. That arena there is actually the home to the New Jersey State Wrestling Championships, where I wrestled many times. So it's kind of cool to see a football field there where I used to wrestle at many times in New Jersey. But we have not played much in this series at all. Let's talk about Utah's Big 12 woes. So, I have a lot of respect for the Utah football program. Watching them have Urban Meyer and what they've done since then, they're an extremely impressive brand of football, and I like the way they play. And I think there's a lot to like about their team. But it is surprising that they are 2-8 since joining the Big 12 conference. I know their fans are disappointed by that because in their minds, they were looking at coming in and having similar success that they did in the Pac 12 and winning championships and always competing for that conference. But right now, they're 2-8. So they still have a lot to prove in this conference. And I know they're gonna probably view this game against West Virginia as a get right game after how they looked at Texas Tech last week. So keep an eye on this 2-8 in the Big 12. What type of Utah team do we see this weekend? What type of Utah team do we see the rest of the season? Can they compete for a Big 12 title like people think they can? And then it's also Utah's first trip to Morgantown. So, like I said, we've only played two other times, and so it's the first time that they're coming to West Virginia for a game. So it's going to be interesting to see how many Utah fans are in the building on Saturday, and hopefully our West Virginia fans can bring it and show that we are one of the best environments in the Big 12 on Saturday. Two-way players. So we're going to break down the roster now. They're an interesting team. They have a few guys that are two-way players. So Jackson Benny is a guy that is a defensive back, but also gets a lot of targets on offense. Lander Barton is a guy that has played linebacker, but has also gotten tight end snaps and has caught balls. And then Smith Snowden is a guy who's a defensive back, but they put him at receiver, they put him at running back, and they've been getting him the ball. So at this new era of NIL and rosters and things like that, they're utilizing everyone they can to get on the field. So they're taking the Travis Hunter playbook, but they're putting it out there with three different guys. So you're not crazy if you think that you see these guys making plays on offense and defense on Saturday. They've been using these guys a lot in two-way situations. Kind of a fun thing to see from their team. Let's talk about Devin Dampierre, a guy that transferred over from New Mexico with his offensive coordinator. Last year really hurt teams on the ground, had over 1,000 yards rushing. His split, though, of touchdowns to interceptions wasn't great. 12 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. Started off this year really hot. 21 for 25 passing against UCLA, 206 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. And then again, Cal Poly, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Wyoming, 2 touchdowns, no picks. A lot of people were saying this guy is a dark horse Heisman candidate, especially if Utah kept winning games. Comes crashing back down to earth last week versus Texas Tech. 34-10 loss, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That first half between Texas Tech and Utah was a turnover fest. If you watched that game, both teams couldn't get momentum going because they were constantly turning over the ball. So he also can hurt you with his feet. He's Utah's leading rusher. 87 rushing yards versus UCLA, 86 rushing yards versus Wyoming. Only had 27 last week. And again, I mentioned he might have been hampered by injuries last week. So we have to keep an eye on that with Dampierre, because if he's not as healthy as he can be, it might be a small advantage to West Virginia. And we need all the advantage we can get with how we've played this season. Let's talk about Utah's rushing attack. I really, really, really like their running back situation. They split the carries pretty evenly. I'm actually surprised that Wayshawn Parker has not gotten more carries than he has this season. 33 carries for 214 yards, 3 touchdowns, averages 6.5 yards a carry. He comes over from Washington State. So he's a really, really nice player. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Utah really started feeding him the ball in this game on Saturday. And then you have Nikari Rogers, a guy that came over from New Mexico as well. 189 yards, 4 touchdowns this season with the 46 carries. So they're going to utilize these guys as best they can, and they're going to use their quarterback as well in the rushing game. So I like their backfield. I think they're good players, and one of the keys to the game is probably going to be West Virginia trying to stop these guys and make Utah try to throw the rock. Let's look at their pass catchers. So we have Ryan Davis, another New Mexico transfer coming over. 29 balls, 241 yards and 1 touchdown, but it's only averaging 8.3 yards a catch. I think his average depth that he runs on routes is like 7 yards. So they're not going to take the top off the defense with this guy. They're kind of dink and dunk. He has good chemistry, obviously, with Dampierre because the 29 catches is impressive. But other than that, they don't have too many guys that can hurt you catching the ball to this point. So they have Dallin Bentley, who's a tight end, who's really been a breakout player for them. As I mentioned before, the other tight end that they had, Hunter Andrews, was supposed to be their top tight end, But with the injury, now Bentley has really shined. 17 catches for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then again, Smith Snowden, a defensive back, 13 receptions for 87 yards. So he can rush the ball, he can pass the ball, he'll play defense. So keep an eye on those guys as their top pass catchers for Utah heading into Saturday. Stacked O-line. Utah's best room by far is their offensive line. Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano. Both these guys are going to be playing on Sundays. They're going to be high draft picks for Utah. Head coach Ty Whittingham said that this is the best offensive line that he's had. So it's a chance for guys like Jamori Robinson to make some money possibly on Saturday, right? If you put a good film out against these guys, you're going to turn some heads in NFL scouting rooms. So this is where Utah is definitely going to have the edge. If they can control that line of scrimmage, it could be a tough day for West Virginia. West Virginia's defensive line has played pretty well this year. It's been one of the bright spots of the team. So that should be a fun matchup to watch on Saturday. But this is going to be the best offensive line, in my opinion, that we're going to see all year. Defensive line, they have some decent players, Logan Fanu, and then John Henry Daly. Let's talk about him. He's had such a crazy season. He's actually a BYU transfer, 18 tackles, 6 sacks, which is a great number through 4 games, and 2 forced fumbles. So this guy really came out of nowhere. It's his second year in the Utah program coming over from BYU, and what a great name that he has. So I really, really like him. And this is where West Virginia is going to have to step up on Saturday, is blocking this guy, because we have not been good offensively. Our PFF grades are terrible on the offensive line, so we cannot let this guy have a field day against us. You might have to keep some guys back to block him. Like I said, Vi Mahi, he is doubtful, so disregard him on the graphic. And then Fanu, 8 tackles, 1 sack. So a decent defensive line, but it all starts with John Henry Daly for the Utes. Linebackers, this is where I really like their room as well. So Jonathan Hall, a nice, talented player with 14 solo tackles and 1 interception. And then Lander Barton, a guy that's played a lot of football, has 15 tackles. So a nice room that does a lot of good things. Utah fans are really excited about these guys. And then their secondary is really, really interesting. So Nate Ritchie is their leading tackler, but I heard someone say he's also their leading missed tackler. So he has the 25 tackles, but he hasn't been great with tackling and getting guys to the ground. And he's really struggled in pass coverage. So if West Virginia can give their quarterbacks time, it might be a guy that you could get a good matchup on and beat them over the top. So if West Virginia has a chance to win, they might have to hit some pass plays down the field. And if it's Jalen Henderson, it's something he hasn't done much this year, so keep an eye on that. The Johnson kid is a talented player. We mentioned Smith Snowden a bunch on this show. And then Jackson Benny not only makes plays on offense, but he also makes plays on defense. 12 solo tackles, 3 interceptions, and 3 pass deflections. So those are really, really solid stats. The guy's like the definition of a playmaker. So Utah has a good defense, right? They're going to come down to the line of scrimmage. You can expect Utah to blitz on pretty much every third down that is going to come our way. So they should be a fun team to watch on Saturday. Hopefully West Virginia's up for it. Keys to the game. So here's my keys to the game. There could probably be 10 keys to the game, but here's my 5 that I have for Saturday. We need to get our quarterback run game going. If Nico's not available, which, I mean, he was in Colorado this week, so I doubt he's going to be available for the game, or I doubt he starts. So Jalen Henderson, if he starts, or Scotty or Khalil, whoever starts, they need to get the quarterback run game going. Any Rich Rodriguez successful offense has a successful quarterback run game, something that has been pretty much non-existent for the most part this year. We need to get that going. If that can happen, it could spark the offense. It could really open things up. The other thing is, give yourself a chance in the fourth quarter. Mountaineer Field needs to come alive again on Saturday. We need to protect home field. That's the one silver lining that we've had this season, is that we've looked good at home. Utah's coming off of a disappointing loss, traveling time zones away to come to Morgantown. We need to protect home field and give ourselves a chance in the fourth quarter. Make it a close game. Their offense is good, but it's not going to blow you away with big plays. Keep yourself in this game. Get some turnovers, because Utah has turned the ball over this year. They've had issues fumbling and things like that. So if you can get a few turnovers and give yourself a chance in the fourth quarter, then you give it your best shot. But we cannot have another week where we're getting blown out by the third early in the third quarter. Fans are going to hit the exits, and then the narrative around the program is just going to be really negative. If you can come out and compete with Utah for 4 quarters and give yourself a chance to win at the end of the game, it's going to help you go a long way. The next thing is stuff the run. Like I said, Utah has really talented running backs, and you don't want them to get the run game going to really hurt you in this one. You want to stuff the run, make them predictable, put them in third and long situations. The other thing is put Dampier on the ground. If he's limited, like they're saying, and he wasn't himself last week, get after him and put him on the ground. Definitely do that. And then the last thing is no special teams errors. Last week, there was special teams hurt us, and special teams can never hurt us with where we're at in this program at this point. With a struggling offense, the special teams needs to do the opposite. They need to make a play or two to put us in the game. So we cannot give up returns for touchdowns, obviously, and give up bad field position. And that is it. So again, about a 20-minute show. I really appreciate you guys. I feel a little bit better about this game than I did earlier in the week. I'm kind of drinking the Mountaineer Kool-Aid and talking myself into this one. Hopefully you guys like this game too. Really appreciate you guys. Please like and subscribe to the show. Let's go Mountaineers.